Hello. Abi won the November U show, and if you've got questions, well, we've got questions. So throw.
Roll the salt, get in the ring. Welcome to the Dohyo.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Dohyo here on MrJWags channel. We're going to be recapping that November Basho, and for those of you who celebrate American Thanksgiving, hope you had a real good one. Now, this recap episode will be a little skinnier than some of the others we have been doing recently. Of course, we are coming down to the end of the calendar year, so we have like Sumo recaps, year-end things, a bunch of little episodes that are going to be coming out before the new year that you're going to love. But if something is not covered in this episode, rest assured it will likely be covered in a very, very soon-to-come episode. Well, that was a heck of a basho. Got some thoughts. It turns out I actually did okay with my predictions this time. I did not pick the Yusho winner, but I did say that Abi was going to be my dark horse June Yusho pick. If healthy, I expected him to do very well at Maegashira 9, and he did. Ended up winning a 12-3 Yusho in a 3-way playoff on the final day. And of course, since Abi won a Yusho, it could not have been without some sort of controversy. There were. Now, every time we get sort of like a surprise winner, although Abi is formerly a Komusubi, I don't see him necessarily as big of it. He's not a Tokushori surprise, but he was like a mid-Maegashira who ended up winning a Basho. There's always sort of the people who say, well, this one doesn't count, this one needs an asterisk because he didn't face a full Sanyaku. Well, if your whole idea of a Yusho is based in the idea that this guy faced an entire Sanyaku slate, well, then we have got a lot of Yusho champions we are going to have to take back. Most recently, Tokushoryu and Asanoyama. And most people who seem to not like Abi do seem to like Asanoyama, so be careful what you wish for on that. There's absolutely no question that having a mid-Maegashira schedule in the first week is easier than having the meat grinder schedule of a Sanyaku or a Joy member. No one's arguing that, but what we are arguing is that sometimes Maegashira Yusho happen, and yeah, the fact that they were not initially ranked and they didn't have the meat grinder in the first week does help. But Abi did beat all the contenders down the stretch. He beat Takayasu twice that day, not just the Henka. He beat him in an excellent match during regulation, and then he had an excellent match against Takakeisho. He also beat Oho. He didn't not face anyone I needed him to face to validate this as a non-asterisk Yusho, which is totally a thing that exists. And yes, we are talking about Henkas again, because Abi ended up Henkaing Takayasu, hurting him somehow on a Henka. I wasn't quite sure on what happened with that. Hiro, whoever was calling at the time, said something about a neck spasm. Hopefully Takayasu is okay. But yes, my opinion on the Henka has not changed. It is a legal move, and in the case of Abi, who is very much a one-trick pony, facing someone in that day who you've already faced in that day, a Henka is sort of a very important tool in the toolbox. And I know some of you are very, very just like anti-Henka, but a lot of our favorites have Henka'd. Hakuho, Terano Fuji, very famous Henkas from those two. And just in the last tournament, we had a Takakeisho, Wakatakakage, swapping Henkasing. People end up doing the thing. It is a part of Sumo. If you don't want it to be a part of Sumo, make it illegal. It just has this big, it's like, I don't want you to do the dishes, I just want you to want to do the dishes energy. And just like, get that out of there. If Henkas are not supposed to happen, then if someone Henkas, call a mata, bam, start over again. I know this is a very American way to sort of look at Sumo. Because in America, we wouldn't have this conversation. It's like, yeah, we want to win, so we're going to end up wanting to win. There are a lot of good things about a Henka. It de-emphasizes the tachiai, which is where a lot of injuries occur. It makes sure that both wrestlers have their eyes on each other as they're starting to wrestle, making it more of a grappling sort of contest as opposed to who is bigger and can displace more mass in a forceful charge. After a tournament, very few people remember about the Henkas, unless it's a very, very famous Henka. But people do remember championships, and people do remember people getting demoted because they didn't win enough matches. So, and I think there's also this idea that, yeah, Abi would not have won the championship had he been at Komusubi and had to face the entire meat grinder. I agree. To this point, I have not seen Abi have the sort of tournament at Komusubi that would make me think, oh, he could jump up there and get 12-3 just starting from the Komusubi line. But he's not in a place where I wouldn't think he couldn't make that jump. He's still young enough, and, he's taken a bit of time off, COVID punishment. Maybe he did, in fact, learn something in the past few years. Abi, learning something weird. So that leads us to our June Yusho winners, the other part of the 3-part playoff. First one of those I've ever seen in Makuuchi in my sumo fandom, so that was awesome. Ozeki Takakeisho, the top man on the Banzuke, excellent showing, 12-3, lost to Abi on the last day, but generally had a very solid tournament and has had a very solid sort of second half of 2022, looking very forward to what he might do next year. I do think we have seen his best sumo, but he might be able to extend his peak and do some more of his best sumo in the near future. And yeah, Takakeisho Jun Yusho, called that one. It shouldn't be a thing where it's like, yeah, totally called Ozeki getting a Jun Yusho, but we are where we are. Takayasu. Oh, Takayasu. So this is his 7th Jun Yusho and his 3rd this year. The second time he has gotten 3 Jun Yusho in a year. The last time was 2018, a year I'm going to be talking about a lot in this and the next few episodes. Just wait. But yeah, something with Takayasu. Either he runs out of gas, he runs out of focus, he starts just questioning his sumo. If you haven't yet, check out the Pearl Jam thing. I compare Takayasu's Jun Yusho to 90s Pearl Jam. It makes more sense if you watch it. But yeah, I think we're just at the point where he's just a little too old to make that Yusho run. And if this talent level Takayasu were in the Banzuke 3 years ago, there wouldn't even be any question of whether he'd be a Jun Yusho person. But here, in this sort of depleted Banzuke, he seems to be in the contender category, just can't get over the hump. Sorry. So while the Yusho hump still seems to be a problem for Takayasu, might he have an Ozeki run in the near future? Now therein lies the rub. What constitutes an Ozeki run? A question we ask very often on this show. Well, he went from Maegashira 4, had an 11-4, and then now Maegashira 1, 12-3. He's facing, like, the meat grinder of opponents. He definitely dominated the Sanyaku in this tournament. So will one tournament in the Sanyaku be enough? And, like, if he has a dominant Yusho, if he has a 13-win Yusho next tournament, he will be an Ozeki, a re-Ozeki, as it were. But I'm not sure if he gets, like, another 10 or 11 or just gets to 33. Will he need the Yusho to get back to Ozeki? I'm also curious to see if he's going to get Komasubi or Sekiwake. There's going to be a giant cluster in either the lower Sanyaku or, like, top of the Maegashira ranks. We'll talk about that in a minute. We talked about Takakeisho, very happy with his 12-3. The rest of our Ozeki Corps. The rest of that Ozeki Corps is looking rough. Mitakeumi did not get his 10 wins at Ozeki Wake, which I didn't think he would. I thought he was going to get at least 7 wins to stay in the Sanyaku. Didn't happen. He looks like he is still recovering from the shoulder injury he had earlier in the year. He ended up having a very, very short Ozeki run. I hope at some point he is able to rest and get healthy and work his way back up the Banzuke, but all recent history is pointing towards a down arrow for Mitakeumi. And Shodai. Contrary to my prediction, he did not get one more Kachikoshi to clear Kataban one more time. So it just goes to show, whatever I predict about Shodai, he's going to do the opposite. That's just the way it works. So now he drops down to Ozeki Wake. He needs 10 wins. I do not think that is going to happen. So now we have one Yokozuna coming off surgery and one Ozeki coming off a reasonably good end of 2022. Now, in terms of the rest of the Sanyaku, the Sekiwake seem to do okay. Now, Wakatakakage has an 8, coming out of an 11. If he ended up getting just like if he ended up getting like a Zensho or a 14 win from here, he might get the Ozeki promotion, but it would take a convincing Yusho. Now, Hoshoryu had an 11-4, early attaboy for Hoshoryu. He stayed in the Yusho race up until the end, had a bit of a fade. It's okay, he's young, he's gonna get over that. I expect him to win his first Yusho in the next year. Radiator noise. But Ozeki-wise, Hoshoryu is in the exact same boat as Wakatakakage in terms of, like, wins. He had an 8 last tournament, and now he has an 11, so they're both stuck on 19. So again, if Hoshoryu had a Yusho next tournament, we might think about it, but it would have to be pretty dominant. I expect the first of our new crop of Ozeki to start arriving no earlier than May. Maybe March if someone has a spectacular January. There was a little bit of Komusubi carnage. We did, and it wasn't too bad. We had all the Komusubi sort of ranked right around the middle 500 line. Kiribayama, I thought he was going to have a better tournament than Hoshoryu. I expected them to sort of be switched. I expected Kiribayama to maybe get up into double digits there in the Joy Sanyaku region. Didn't happen, but still, Garakachi Koshi Komusubi, no one's really complaining. Now our other Komusubi, Tamawashi, Makekoshi, we all sort of expected that. Tobazaru, I think we were hoping for a bit more. 7 and 8, it's real close. He's going to hang out in the Joy. We'll see if this is for real next year. I don't think he's a low Maegashira true talent level anymore, but I don't think he's going to hang out in the Sanyaku regularly, as much as I love Tobazaru. And Daisho. Daisho ended up getting demoted his way out as well. Now we have two 7 and 8s, Tobazaru and Daisho, so that's going to drop them down to like Maegashira 1. But I think we're going to have to stay with the 10-person Sanyaku for a little while longer, because by my math we have 9 to 10 Rikishi who deserve to be Maegashira 1 and 2 right now. We might be seeing things like Wakamoto Haru being promoted to Komusubi. Takayasu going up to Sekiwake. Maybe we see Meisei Kotenwaka up to Komusubi as well to hang out with Kiribayama. I just see a lot of just people who deserve to be ranked right at that Komusubi, Maegashira 1-2 line. And I don't know how the Bansuke is going to do it unless we have a few extra Sanyaku ranks. And it wouldn't be a recap unless we have some of Uncle Sumo's Attaboys. Now, of course, Uncle Sumo's Attaboys is a recurring segment where we give a little extra attaboy to someone who did really well during the tournament. Now, as I said, Takakeisho, Hoshoryu, you did super well, but you guys are like upper, mid-upper Sanyaku type, so we expect you to do well. Who else did well this tournament? Well, let's start with two young men who had excellent tournaments, Oho and Hiradoumi. They had their first double-digit wins in Makauchi ever. Great on you guys. You guys are young. You guys are amazingly talented. Hiradoumi, of course, got a 7 and 8 right at the bottom of the Banzuke. We were worried he's going to get demoted, but no. He stayed in, got 3 more wins this time, 10 and 5. Attaboy. Oho, the Yokozuna princeling, of course, the grandson of Dai Yokozuna, Taiho. Oho has finally started to show some signs of breaking out the Maegashira ranks. Let's not get too crazy, but I think he could make the Sanyaku next year. Nishiki Fuji, 9 and 6. So for those of you who have been following along, he got an 11 and 4 in Juryo, then 10 and 5. But that 10 and 5 had 3 Fusen wins. But he's like, heck with it, I'll get 10 on my own. And then he did 10 and 5, and now 9 and 6. Very interested to see what this true talent level is. Now, he's a guy started a little bit late, started organized sumo when he was about 20, ended up losing a year to injury in Makushita, but he has had a fairly steady rise through the ranks. He's 26 now and just starting to do some damage in Makauchi. Very excited to see if this might lead to Sanyaku in the next year as well. I mean, Isagahama Beya had some issues this tournament, but he was not one of them. And another Isagahama man, Midori Fuji. It may feel like I'm giving him like just a little bit of the benefit of the attaboy here. I gave him one last tournament for a 7 and 8, so I have to give him one here for Akachi Koshi in the Joy. I just keep expecting him to just get his clock cleaned up there, and he's a littler guy who manages to get it done. And the difference seems to be, unlike guys like Ishiura or Enho, or even to a lesser extent like Tobazaru, Midori Fuji has a plan and a go-to move. The Katasukashi, the armpit sort of pull down. So if he can land that armpit grab, he has a good chance of upsetting whoever he is facing. So no, I don't think Midori Fuji is ever going to be a Sanyaku regular, but I'm just so happy he's hanging out up there while he's living this dream peak of his. Attaboy, Midori Fuji. And this next attaboy helped fulfill a prediction that I made for the year-long prediction. The prediction was that someone making their Makauchi debut would end the year in the Joy, and Wakamoto Haru did it. His first year in Makauchi had an amazing year, ended with a 10 and 5 at his highest rank, Maegashira 4 East. So he's going to be up in the Joy in that giant cluster we were talking about earlier, but I think he makes a Sanyaku debut next year. Maybe starts pushing up there, threatening for a Yusho. Attaboy middle brother. Now for some lower division Attaboys. Well, first of all, Enho. Ah, yay! I was very worried about Enho. He's hanging out down there at the bottom of Juryo. I was worried we were going to lose him, like we ended up losing Tokashoryu this tournament. I don't think we're going to see him back up in Juryo anytime soon. But Enho, 10-5. He's going to be moving up the ranks next tournament. Attaboy. And of course, like, attaboy to the Juryo Yusho winner, Oshoma. Great job. Now, even though Oshoma didn't come from the power center I was talking about, Juryo 6 and 7, those four guys gonna have great careers ahead of them. You can add Oshoma to that list as a guy who is under 26 and ready to start devastating the top divisions. Now let's see who's taking that midnight train to Juryo. Now this one's not quite as cut and dried as it has been in some of the recent Basho. It looks like we have definitely 3 going down and 1 maybe going down. And then we have 3 who look like they should be coming up and 2 maybes coming up. So, the first one who's definitely going down, Terutsuyoshi. Maegashira 16, 0-15. 0-15, not a Kyujo, showed up every day for work and lost every day. This has not been seen since 1991. I want to say relish it? I mean, don't relish it, but like, just be aware. This doesn't happen very often. So yes, as pointed out in the comments of the Quick Strikes, it is not likely that he is going to go completely through Juryo and end up in Makushita, but he's going to end up deep in Juryo. Makauchi debutante, Maegashira 15, Atami Fuji, did not have a good tournament, 4-11. He's going to be headed down. Hopefully we will see him back in Makauchi no later than May. And then, of course, the third demotion who's definite is Chiyotairyu. Now, I don't have much to add to this. We'll be going a little more into Chiyotairyu's career when we do the year-end review and like the list of Intai. But yeah, ended up retiring in the middle of the tournament. So everyone ranked below him. Promotion time. Good on ya. Now at Maegashira 8, Takara Fuji had a 3-12, so this one's going to be real close. If he stays in the Makauchi division, it's going to be right on the borderline at like the Maegashira 16 area, or maybe 17 if we end up creating that rank for the next tournament. I do not envy the Bansake committee. Now our promotions are a little less clear than our demotions this time. Now at Juryo 3, Tsurugisho had a 10-5, and also Motoryu at Juryo 3 West had a 9-6. I think that is going to be enough to get them both bumped up, so they are my first 2 in sort of the promotion queue. Although at Juryo 5 East, I also see Aqua with a 10-5. He also could get slightly ahead of Motoryu, but those are the 3 I see making the promotion first. Now, if we have a 4th promotion, it's either going to be Chiyomaru, who got an 8-7 at Maegashira 1 West. Ooh, so he still has that like little half rank. He can still get promoted up without technically having to be promoted up into Makauchi. So if he had gotten just 1 more win, buddy, he would have been back. Or Hokuseiho, 10-5 down at Juryo 6 from the Power Center. Now a jump from Juryo 6 to Makauchi, not even close to the biggest Juryo jump we have seen this year. So yeah, that could be a possibility going forward. As I have said 2 times before, I do not envy this Banzake committee. So the story of Sumo, well, I mean, I'm going to be answering this writ large in the year-end review, but where we are at seems to be, all of the old guard seems to be just that, old, and we have moved on. We have 1 lone sort of transfer over from the old regime. Takakeisho seems to be holding on, but the new wave seems to be almost here, and they're pushing those guys just down the Banzake. Mitakeyumi, Daisho, those guys no longer in the Sanyaku. Will they ever be back? Shodai, what's he going to be doing coming up? Terunofuji, does he come back healthy? And when he does, do we see that much more of him before his career is over? We are at a time in sumo where the top ranks have utterly begun to fail us. The sumo pyramid has become a bit more of a sumo mound. So this makes it much harder to predict, but it makes it a heck of a lot of fun. Thank you for joining us here on the Dohyo. As I mentioned before, we have so many offerings coming up before the new year to keep you entertained and sumo-minded during the holidays. We're updating Ozeki rankings. There is an addendum to the Shadow of Hakuho. We have a year in review, and you're not going to want to miss any of that. So stay safe, stay strong, stay healthy, and I'll see you next time on the Dohyo.